You are.
Good morning, everyone. So welcome to the fifth week of our boot camp for UNF Asia Pacific Low Carbon Lifestyle Challenge. And today our session is telling your story through your numbers. And for that, we have with us Lisa and Ian from Global Urban Village, which is an impact investing firm and a consulting firm. So now I'll hand over it to Lisa. So Lisa, you can go ahead, stage is all yours.
Co-founder of Global Urban Village. As Avinav said, we are an impact investing firm with a global reach. We're based in the United States, but we are in the process of opening an office in Southeast Asia. We are focused on capacity building consulting and seed stage for early stage impact entrepreneurs like yourselves. And we've met some of you because we were judges in an earlier stage of the process. So I see at least a couple of familiar faces here. We might still have others join, but I think we'll just go ahead and get started. Today we're going to talk about telling your story with numbers. He is our financial expert, so he's going to deliver most of the content. Essentially, he's going to walk through the slides today, explaining how to tell your story with numbers. Then we'll jump into an Excel spreadsheet and really look at the template, dive in a little bit more deeply. And then following that, we will go ahead and send out the template so you'll be able to work with the numbers for your own business on the template following the call. And then we will offer to have a meeting with everybody participating, all the winners participating, to discuss your financials for your business separately. So once you have a chance to look at the template, we'll be able to review that with you and answer any questions that you might have. So with that, I will hand it over to Ian to jump into telling your story with numbers.
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for this opportunity to connect with you all. Excited to go through this. So why don't we just jump in. I'm going to share my screen and go through some slides. All right. Okay, so telling your story with numbers. The reason why I thought this was important to go over is what we find and what we also hear from a lot of other investors is that one of the biggest challenges that we all have is when evaluating companies and finding somebody that's really promising, going to that next step about asking for their financials, trying to understand more about their business. What we receive is a range of things, everything from not very good numbers, not very clear numbers, and basically these investors really have a limited amount of time to look at each company. Investors look at hundreds of companies every year, and if they just don't have the time to sort out numbers. And so if you are able to clearly portray your business through your numbers, you'll be head and shoulders above your peers. So I think it's really important to have clear, understandable financials. What I'm going to do today is just quickly kind of go through a financial forecast of cash flow and then answer some investment type questions with that cash flow. And hopefully you can walk away feeling a little bit more comfortable with the numbers and more familiar with financials. Like Lisa said, we're happy to follow up with each one of you to talk through specifics about your business, any particular questions that you have pertaining to the model or outside the model, and happy to go in further. So So let's start off with our agenda. Going to keep it short. It's only 12 slides. We'll start with an introduction, which we kind of already done. So we'll move on quickly to an investor perspectives. And I think that the key here is providing context for what it looks like from the investor side. Then we'll start to build a model and really kind of use this idea of telling your story with numbers as a way to frame building a model. And then ultimately what we're going to try to do today is answer a couple key questions that you'll hear from a lot of investors, which is how soon will your business be profitable and what will it take to get there? I.e., how much of investment do you need to get there? So let's just jump in. We've kind of already covered our introduction, but this is some more information on us. We're going to send you the slide deck. So if you're interested, there's more info on us. So let's talk about the investor perspective. Investors have lots of different ways of evaluating companies. I'm sure you've heard a lot of that in working through your pitches. But ultimately, there's some key things that they're looking for. Team, the market opportunity, what you've identified as the potential in the market, either financial or impact or both. And then the product or service that is you've created to go after that market opportunity. And ultimately, you need these things for an investor to be interested. And to take it to the next step, you have to have a compelling pitch, which I know you all are working on. I actually attended the first session and heard all of your pitches, which you all did really good. And it's exciting to see all of the range of impact solutions that you all have. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with after you've worked on this for this boot camp. So let's say you do have a compelling pitch and the investor wants more. What's next? Well, to continue with this kind of filter idea, the second filter for investors might look like something like this. This is kind of the 3 Ps. I didn't make this up, but this is just a way to think about, you've gotten through the pitch. Now the investor wants more information. What are they looking for? Well, some key things is the potential, or how big is the return going to be? And again, that's financial or impact. The probability, so how likely is it to be successful, and the period. How long will it take until you are successful? And in order to really to do this, you need to be able to share your financials, and you need to be able to do it in a way that tells your story, basically backs up the pitch that you gave by showing that your business model has clear financials and tells a story that you're trying to tell. So what does that look like? This is an example of a forecasted cash flow. Essentially what you're looking at is a profit and loss statement that has been forecasted over 10 years with a simple, quick investment analysis there at the bottom. Now, for this class, we're using the example of Lee's biodegradable rain jackets. It's a made-up business, but it'll help with identifying the different parts that go into this model. It's actually pretty simple. It looks like a lot, but we're just going to break this down in a way that hopefully makes it more familiar and easier to work through. So getting back to this idea of telling your story, taking that step further, you have to have a plot to tell your story. And like a good book, you're going to have a beginning to your story. And this is really kind of setting the scene for your business. Or another way to look at it is defining the hero or the protagonist of your business. And that really is your solution. So we're going to talk about the revenue and the cost of goods sold, and ultimately getting to your gross margin. And we'll explain what those things are and why they're important. After the beginning of your story, you'll move on to the middle. Now, like a good book, the middle of the story now kind of introduces the challenge that you're facing. And in this instance, the challenge is going to be the challenge of running your business. So operating expenses are going to be pretty important when showing how efficient you are running your business. And ultimately, we want to get to what your net income is, which is ultimately your cash flow. And that will be able to give us some ways to calculate other things like the investment analysis will show. So after the middle, then we get to the end. The end is hopefully a happy ending. And this is really just to clearly show what your investment needs are. When you finish your story, you should be able to clearly be able to show an investor what you expect with your cash flow, and because of that, what you are asking for with your investment. And the more clear that you can be with that, the more confidence you'll give to the investor, which will give them more incentive to move forward. Okay, so let's just jump in. I'll stop for questions in a bit here, but I think we should just jump into the beginning part, and then we can stop for questions. So we're going to break this down piece by piece. Okay, so now we're looking at the beginning of your forecast. Starts with your revenue. Lots of different models for revenue out there. I know you all probably have different ways that you're calculating your revenue or projected revenue. But essentially, I assume that you guys can know how to do that. So we're just going to start there with revenue. In Lee's example, her business, she projects for the first year $50,000 in revenue. Now, in order, again, to get to this gross margin percentage, and I'll get to why that's important, we have to calculate our cost of goods sold. I'll have more detail on that on the next slide, but ultimately, these are your costs that are directly related to the production of your product or service. So you can see here that for Lee's example, she has estimated $25,000 in her first year for her cost of goods sold. So what that enables us to do is we can calculate our gross income, which is pretty straightforward, your revenue minus your cost of goods sold, which then enables you to calculate your gross margin. So for the first year, Lee is projecting a 50% gross margin. Now, why is that important? Two key things, and gross margin will be one of the early questions a lot of times that you'll get, because it tells an investor how efficient you're running your business, and it also gives an investor a way to compare you to other companies that they're evaluating. So it's very key that you know this number and be able to back it up with your story about how you're getting there. Some other things to think about. So this gross margin will range depending on what type of business you're in. So for example, if you're a SaaS company, you might be looking at 75 to 90% is your gross margin. If you're in more of a service provider, you might be closer to 60%. If you're a product, it might be even lower. It really ranges, and investors, based off of what markets that they are targeting, will know the range of gross margin that they're looking for. For example, in one of the readings that I provided had an example from Lighter Capital, which is an early stage investment impact investment company here in the States. And they basically say that they won't look at any company that's under 60%. It's just not even worth it for them. So this is why this is so important. So before I move on, actually, I'll go to the next slide and then I'll see if you have any questions. So just to go a little further with the cost of goods sold, these are your direct costs, direct. So that's your direct labor, your direct materials, and any overhead that is directly related to producing your good or service. So for Lee, this might be her direct labor would be the seamstresses that are putting together her jackets. The direct materials would be the fabric that goes into making the jackets, and her direct overhead might be the delivery cost of shipping those jackets. Now, it's not always clear what goes into cost of goods sold versus expenses, which we'll get into later. But one way you might be able to kind of figure it out is to ask yourself the question, if no sales are generated, would there be a cost? If yes, then it is not a cost of goods sold. So for Lee, this might be that she has rented a factory, but she has not received any orders yet. So she has not had any direct cost, but she has rented the factory. So this rent would not be a cost of goods sold in this example. So that's kind of a quick overview of what cost of goods sold are, and that is what's critical to being able to calculate your gross margin. So before I go on, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. Okay. All right, let's move on to the middle of our story. Okay, so this one's pretty straightforward, but like I said before, we're trying to get to our net income basically by subtracting our operating expenses from our gross income. Pretty straightforward. Now, why is this important? Like I said before, this is how you are going to run your business. This is how you're demonstrating your ability to take this challenge on and run an efficient business. What it does is you can then calculate your projected cash flow. Your net income or loss is your projected cash flow. And this helps tell an investor how much is needed for this company to get profitable as an investment. So in this example, obviously in the first year, Lee has a negative net income. It's quite common for early stage businesses. You got to get the thing off the ground before you can really get a lot of sales. So that's why you need investment. So this is a way to get to your bottom line and show that this is what you project for your cash flow. Now, just to touch on the difference between cost of goods sold and expenses.
Hi, Ian. Sorry to
Yes.
disturb you. We definitely have two questions. I think probably if you want to answer them.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see them in.
So one is, should cost of goods sold be understood on a per unit basis or on a time frame? It's in the chat. Did you get it?
Where do I look? So in this, I mean, you can do it lots of ways. I like to do both, to be honest. When you get into the details, it's helpful to break it down. What I'm showing here is just on an annual basis. So it basically takes that per unit cost, multiplies it by your total expected sales, and kind of rolls it all up into 1 year just to keep it simple. But if you're able to break it down, it's always helpful. And when you get into talking with certain investors that really know the industry that you're in, they're most likely going to want to be able to talk those numbers. So I would say it's a good idea to not necessarily that you have to show it, but maybe you definitely know in the background what those numbers are and you've looked at them and worked through them.
So we have another one just below that.
Okay, so the next question is, can you clarify that if no sales but direct costs will be there in getting ready for sales, i.e. direct production costs? So it's kind of a gray area. And I think that if it's, for example, in Lee's example, she might have gone ahead and purchased fabric beforehand, expecting sales. Now, of course, that fabric would go to cost of goods sold. not to get too into the accounting of it, but there is a kind of a first in, first out way of method of doing it. But I think when you're talking about presenting to investors, you want to project what the cost is going to be for the sales that you're expecting. If that makes sense. So you're projecting over a certain amount of period of time what your sales are going to be, and directly related to those sales are what your cost of goods sold should be. So hopefully that answers your question. Are there any other questions on the middle part of your story?
Hi, Ian, we have one more. How about product? Yeah.
Cost to build the product or application. So those would be capital costs, and I have not included those in this model, but it would basically kind of be a single cost for that period of time. So if you needed to spend money to build your app, for example, then that would be a single, not an expense or a cost, but it would be a single capital cost that would go into that first year. So it's actually outside of cost of goods sold, and it's actually not an expense either. So it would be kind of a third category, which I'm happy to get into more detail one-on-one, but that is outside of cost of goods sold and actually outside of expenses as well. Continuous R&D, I would put that in expenses. That is not related to direct sales. If to use that question again, if you don't have any sales, would you have this cost for R&D? If it's ongoing, then you would. And so that would be outside of your cost of goods sold. So I would put that in expenses. Any other questions? Okay, I'm trying to understand this question. There are no sales, direct costs. Yeah, if you want to ask verbally, that'd be great. I think I understand your question. It's getting into a little bit of accounting details as far as how to represent that. What I'm trying to focus on. What I'm trying to focus on is how you present your forecasted business plan to investors. So if you're expecting costs that will be associated with the sales of your product or service, then you should show that in your model. That is a cost that is there. Now, when you get into annual GAAP accounting and all this kind of stuff, there's some differences there, but that's not what I'm trying to get into today. Today is really about how do you present the costs, expenses, and revenue to your investors. And then your last one here, R&D, I would put in indirect costs. Yes, I'd put that in my expenses. No problem. Happy to do it. All right, so let's move on. And if there's more questions, just please throw them up there. Okay, so we're now gotten through our expenses, and just quickly, these are pretty straightforward, and they're really just your indirect costs. But as the examples show, things like your salaries, your rent, office supplies, legal costs, R&D is another good example. Okay, so that brings us to the end of your story. And for this exercise, we're really just trying to answer those two questions that was at the beginning, which is, when will you be profitable and how much do you need to get there? Now, in Lee's example, she is going to be profitable in year 5, and she needs a minimum investment of $245,000 to get there. Now, I'm kind of going backwards. I'm jumping ahead here. So how do we get there? Like I said, it's the period of time the 5 years is the period of time to get to a positive net income, and 245,000 is the capital required to cover your net losses until your company is profitable. So how do we do that? Basically, we need to take what was kind of a 1 year and project that over time. So let's add a second year. Now, the way that I've set this up, and again, this is just, kind of a straightforward, quick kind of overview of how to do this. But essentially, we have to take year 1 and project what we think is going to happen in year 2. So for Lee, she needs to project what her future growth is going to be. Now, in this example, she has got quite a bit of growth in the second year, and that's pretty common for a startup. And there's lots of reasons why she might expect this. She might be releasing a new line of different type of jackets. She might have a new market that she's going after. She might have her initial customers ordering more. There's lots of ways to obviously grow your revenue. So you have to think through, what might this look like? So once you project your growth, and this is based off of a percentage, then you project your cost of goods sold. Again, this is based off of the gross revenue, but you have to just spend some time and think through what's behind these numbers. Again, being directly related to your gross revenue. And then similarly, project your future expenses. So pretty straightforward. Now that you have year 2, you can go ahead and expand it. Keep going. I recommend, pushing it out to 10 years, and spending some time going through it and really thinking through what's behind these numbers and how you're getting there. So what this does for us is basically, if you can look down at the bottom net income loss line, gives you an ability to answer the questions that we had asked before. So Lee is profitable in year 5. And if you add together her net income loss to get to the profitability, she requires a minimum investment of $245,000. So this is obviously really important. This is what she needs and what she's projecting to get to profitability. Now, I say minimum investment because there might be other things. This is basically based off of just a quick cash flow analysis. But she might think, okay, there's some additional equipment I might have to purchase. There might be some buffer that I want to build into this in case there's some slow periods that I need to cover some costs. There could be a number of reasons why, but you want to think through, okay, this is really kind of a starting period. This is the minimum I need, but think about it holistically and what it's going to take to be confident that you'll be able to make it to profitability. So there's a quick question here. in this financial plotting, please share the total production and sales units. So this is really just a high level. I have not put together the production and sales units. I'd be happy to jump in with you on that offline or when we connect later. But this is really just an example to demonstrate the financial forecasting and cash flow, and really just trying to show how we can get to answering these two critical questions. The other thing I would mention is looking at your gross margin. Now, if you look back year one, we projected 50%, and you can see that it grows over time. And this is pretty common as well. As your company matures, you get more efficient, you understand how to run your business better, you get better unit costs on the materials and so forth. So it's quite common to see a growth. So when asked, what's your gross margin, you might not want to report your first year. You might want to say, look, when we're profitable, I'm expecting to be around 60% gross margin for Lee's example. So it's something to think through. So I'll stop here. I'm going to jump into our Excel sheet to show you how this template works. But if there's any more questions, I can answer those now. Okay. So now we've jumped over to the Excel sheet. This is exactly what was on the slides. It's basically it's basically just kind of a really high level model for you all to take the time to put your own projections on revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, annual growth. And essentially, this model will calculate everything for you. Again, it's really kind of a starting place just to estimate where you think you might land with these things, and be able to start to look at how much investment might I need, when will my company be profitable, and really, like I said, this is a starting point. So you can take this and develop lots of different things. You can figure out how to calculate your revenue and all your units and all these kinds of things to plug into that gross revenue. And on the back end, you can do things like profit margin. You can estimate what type of investment metrics will an investor receive. You can estimate how much capital after the investor gets paid back that you will receive. So there's lots of different things you can do with this, but again, this is really just kind of a starting place. This is a model for you to play with. So why don't I'll show you how it works. Essentially, all you have to do is input where the numbers where the cells are shaded yellow, and the rest of the model will calculate it, the rest of the numbers for you. So let me see a couple questions first. So first one's on the annual growth. It's asking about how do you estimate, how do you estimate expected growth rate? And yes, it does depend on quite a lot of factors. Again, this is really high level, and this is kind of just to show how things come together. But you have to spend some time with why the number is what it is. It's not just inputting a number. If you get in a situation where you do have the opportunity to show an investor your numbers, if you don't have a good reason behind why you think your growth rate is going to be what you're showing, then you're not going to instill a lot of confidence. So your growth rate whatever you think it is, you have to consider all those factors when you estimate what that number might be. Could we also add sweat investment of the founder to increase the valuation of the company? There's lots of ways to look at that. I definitely think that you should keep track of what you think your sweat equity is. It will be a conversation that you'll have to have with your investors on supporting why you think that number is what it is. And using it to increase the valuation of your company is going to be a tough one, I think, for investors. They're gonna do their own numbers, and they're gonna do their own evaluation of what they think things are worth. And so, you have to be careful why projecting what you think your company is based off of sweat equity. I think you really want to show what you think your numbers are and base your company valuation off of the value you're bringing. Because investors are going to be tough on you when it comes to sweat equity. I'm just going to be honest. Then another question on per unit product service pricing. Yeah, so this is a question about pricing of your product or service, and that does drive your gross income. You're going to have to be able to show why you think you can sell your product or service at the price that you've priced it at, and it has to be built off of, is there other products like it in the market? Are there competitors? What are they selling it for? Or is it an opportunity that no one else has seen before, but that you have to still be able to back up why you think you can sell things for the price that you have? It's a lot of times you're going to be dealing with investors that really know the market that you're dealing with, or the sector that you're in, and they're going to have a sense of what things could be priced at. And sometimes they're going to think that your pricing is low. I mean, sometimes they think that you could do more. But again, getting back to this telling your story, you really want to have a background and the ability to back up what is the numbers that you're putting out there. You can't just pick a price out of the air. You have to really do the analysis of why you think you can get that price, and then how many units can you move for that price. You have to do that analysis and look, maybe you lower the price but you sell more units. You want to play around with different ways of doing your revenue model. Okay, I got 20 minutes left. So Lynn, I'd be happy to jump into growth rates later on this, and discounted cash flow, future cash flow. Happy to jump into that. There's different ways to do that, and it's a good thing to do, and it's going to be something that your investors will definitely do. They're going to discount the cash flow and see really what the investment's worth. So I'm happy to jump in with you on that later. All right, so we have 20 minutes, so why don't we just quickly jump through this model. So basically, like I said, you would start with your gross revenue. So for Lee's example, that is $50,000 in the first year. Then go in and fill out your line items for your cost of goods sold. I included a couple extra lines in there in case there's some additional line items that you all want to include. Then you would go in and fill out your first year of gross revenue. Now you can see the model starting to fill out the rest of the numbers. So then after that, same thing, go into your operating expenses. And these are just some examples of expenses. So you might want to go in and change them depending on what your business and solution is. But same thing, add your line items and then add your projected costs. Okay, so now you have your first year filled out. So then you go in and, like I said before, fill out what you think you might be able to grow your revenue to. And in this model, it's based off of a percentage. So you can just kind of play around with, what if I double my revenue? What if I quadruple my revenue? You can put in 200%, 100%, just look at it different ways. And then, keep going, third year, and then, keep on going until you're done with your 10 years. And now you have all of your numbers filled out, and you can look at, look at different things. Now, I have built in some formulas that are in the back end of all this that kind of make projections just to give you a model to play with. You can take it a step further and overwrite these formulas and just start putting numbers in. That's up to you. I'm also happy once we do some one-on-ones to talk through a little further and help you kind of flush it out. But as you can see for this model down here, we're now to those two key metrics that we mentioned before, where you have your profitability in your fifth year and your minimum investment at $245,000. What I went ahead and did is just added a quick little calculation in here just to give you a sense of things. So this is a way to, based off of the investment, give a quick valuation of what you think the company might be worth. So in this instance, for a $245,000 investment, if the investor receives 20% of the company, then that implies that this company is worth 1.2 million plus. So that's kind of it. Again, this is just kind of meant to be a quick starter. Like Lisa said, what we're going to do is we'll send you all an email. I'll send you this actual Excel sheet and the slide deck, so you can look at the calculations and whatnot. And then we're going to have a scheduling. Have Lisa join back in. Have a scheduling. Sorry. We'll send you an email that has a couple time slots for us that are available. If they don't work for you, let us know and we'll figure something out. But we're looking forward to connecting with you all and talking a little bit deeper with your companies. We can talk through this Excel sheet. If you have your own that you want to talk through, happy to do that. If you want to talk about how to expand on this one, we can do that as well. We're open. So that's kind of it. That's quickly how to tell your story with numbers.
Awesome. And for anyone who is joining who isn't part of the award-winning team, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to extend the offer to speak with you as well.
Yeah, Lisa, I think Ian, Lisa, you can probably put your email in the chat. So if there are people who want to reach out to you separately, they can do it.
All right, I'm doing that now.
So Ian, I think our next presentation from Mitsui Chemical starts in another 10-15 minutes. So in the meantime, do you want to take questions? So guys, you are please feel free to ask questions.
Yeah. Hi, Ian and
Hello.
Lisa. Rakesh here. Asked you a couple of questions on discount, cash flow, future cash flow, and all. I think I will be needing your help because, like you said in the last sentence, that we have to give certain equity from the company, you know.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked about the sweat equity of the founder is to increase the valuation of the company so that, even if we ask the investor to, take away 20% of the share, they would be investing a little more money than what the actual valuation of the company is.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is why, because for a company like mine, where I work only with the government. I don't have private customers and all, but my collection of plastic happens every day. But I'm not
Yeah.
able to execute or use the plastic every day, because road is something that you cannot do every day, and then it's something that even if I have 3 to 4 works in hand, I'm not able to do it at one time. I have to do it at a time. So on
Yeah.
this, I have made a financial projection just like you have shared. I think I'm going to share that with you in your email. If you could
Great.
just go through, and then I've also scheduled the financial, the future cash flow also.
Okay.
So, uh, so I've done it in 2 ways now. Uh, I have calculated per ton of plastic. Well, I'll be using that per ton of plastic to make this many kilometers of road. But at the same time, the value of the total road also. So it's a little complicated. So I will be needing your help one-on-one session, especially on the financial, especially when other entrepreneurs, they are from different country, and it's a very big country where the population is huge, the market is huge, but from where I'm coming, Bhutan, it's a very small country. So I
Yeah.
need to show the cash flow, a lot of cash flow, a lot of customers. So in order to attract the investors. So I'll be needing your help, Ayan and Lisa. Thank you so much for today's
Yeah.
session.
We're happy to help. And it sounds like um, the, if I hear you right, the challenge that you're having is one that a lot of people have, which is the difference between the cost of what you're making versus the value that you're creating.
True, true,
And
true, true, true.
and
Yes,
that
yes.
and that again is why you really need to tell a good story, because you want them to understand that it's about the value, and that it's not about these little sum of parts that build up to this. It's about this solution that you've created that creates this
Yes,
value.
yes, yes, yes. So until today, I was, trying to, pursue the investors and other banks, for instance, on a more social cause of my business rather than the money that I'm I'm making at the end of the day. And then I have also included the repayment that I make to the banks, because the interest rate here in Bhutan is very high. It's 13%.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
a huge amount of the money that I make, the gross income that I make, almost 40% goes in paying back the money that I borrowed from the bank. So the margin is very low actually, even though I have done a lot of work, but the repayment is quite high. So instead of giving it to the bank, making the banks more richer, why not invite, people, investors, so that we could split the money in half, by asking them to be a part of the company rather than making the banks more richer. So that's the whole idea actually. So definitely I will be in touch, Ayn and Lisa. Thank you so much.
Okay. Sounds good. Look forward to it. There's a couple other questions in the chat that popped up. One's about what if your startup has several products, a mix of app services and hardware product. So what I would do is actually build this model for each product, and then wrap it into an aggregate model that you would show to an investor. Now they might then go, okay, I want to see this broken down, but um, uh, what I would do is take this into pieces and then pull it together to show one complete company forecast. So a question about founder's salary, and whether that should be included in operating expenses. and is able to be represented in any formal way. You know, whether you're paying yourself or somebody else, someone's got to do the work. And so, you know, your own salary would go into this. And you can even say, you know, if you're not actually taking cash, but you're setting a salary for yourself that you're basically saying, this is my sweat. I think that's totally okay to do. You have to, you know, investors will push back on it and you'll have to stand your ground. But ultimately, somebody's got to do the work and you should get paid for that. So I think it is something that you should include in expenses. Next one is gross revenue has reduced the income tax part or not. So what I'm showing with gross revenue is I would take the tax out first. If you have, well, so income, it depends taxes, right? So some taxes like sales tax are applied to the top line. So I would take that out before I show gross revenue. But if you have income tax, that would become after your bottom line. So that would not be a part of your revenue, if I'm understanding your question right. The next one is opportunity costs included in the direct. So so opportunity cost does not, if I'm understanding the question correctly, salaries definitely should go into your indirect costs. If their salaries to your direct labor to produce your service or good, then that would go into your cost of goods sold. As far as opportunity costs, maybe that's sweat equity. If it's sweat, then I think that's something that you could support and put in your model. Opportunity costs, most likely not. CapEx, that was kind of what I was saying earlier, which is would be kind of a third part here. I did not put CapEx in here. Basically, you know, if you had to buy some equipment or pay up front for app development or something like that, I would actually include that probably in between your operating expenses and your net income, and it would ultimately reduce your net income. David, I'm not sure I understand your question. Is that then a financial investment made by founder? Is that referring to, let's see. Oh, okay. Yes. I mean, you can, it's something that you should make a case for. Essentially, it would be sweat equity, right? It could go in as expenses, but if you're going to take it as equity, trying to think through how I would show it. So what I would do is I would show it in my operating expenses, and then on a separate part show the equity that you are accumulating by deferring your salary, and ultimately should be part of, you know, any kind of co-investment. You know, a lot of times investors will ask for you to put some more skin in the game. And essentially, if you're familiar with that term, is basically they want to see that you have put some actual cash into this project of yours, your business, to show that you're really committed. So sweat equity is good in a lot of ways. Investors like to see it because you're deferring salary somewhere else to actually work on your project. So I would show it in both. I'd show it in expenses and then show what you've accumulated elsewhere. Okay. Last one here, I think. General question, we have some young companies here, 1 year old. How do you value them in order to really impress the investors because of the uncertainty? Good question. So it's all about kind of projecting what your cash flow is. And I think that, in this Excel sheet, there is, a quick way of doing a company valuation based off of what investment you need and how much you might offer for the company, but this really doesn't give you a good way to show investors based off of what you think it's really worth. That's where the discounted cash flow analysis comes in handy. There's other ways of looking at multiples. There's also looking at your competitors and other companies in your market. There's a range of ways to do this, and it's really good to triangulate to get to what you think is really what your company is worth. But ultimately, for an investor, they are looking at what your company will become, right? And so they're going to want to see what you might project your company to be in the future. And so essentially, they're looking for a multiple of return. And a lot of times they're looking at a 10-year hold, for example, and they want to see that after 10 years, once the company might exit, that they can get 4x, 10x. If you're talking about true venture capital, they're looking for 30x of their investment. And so I'd be happy to jump into this a little further. I actually had it in here before and it got a little confusing. So what you might do is project what your company would be in year 10 and apply a multiple to that number and look at what your company's worth. And based off of that, you might be able to project what type of return an investor would get. And based off of that, then you can kind of get a sense of what your company is worth to that investor. It'd be a lot easier if I could, show the numbers behind that, but that's kind of a quick way of answering that. Okay.
So I think Ian, we have to stop. I think we can take this, offline now because Mitsui Yano-san is there, and our time is, running out. Okay.
Yeah. Well, just quick wrap up. We'll send you all an email, and I look forward to getting into more detail with all your specific companies and questions and so forth.
Yep. Best of luck with the growth of your businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ian and Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lisa and Ian. Thank you for taking this session.
Great. All right, you guys have a good day.
Yeah. Mr. Yano, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me show myself.
Ian, can you unshare your screen? Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Okay, here we go. Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is lunchtime in Singapore. India is like a little bit earlier. And so thank you very much for taking us to join this meeting, the program. And today, we are going to introduce the Mitsui Chemicals and the petrochemical industry, and also like what we do dealing with plastic issues. on behalf of Mitsui Chemicals, today the speaker is coming from the Singapore Mitsui Chemicals Singapore R&D Center. Mr. Yoshikazu Uehara is the managing director of the MSR&D. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Uehara. And Uehara-san, can you take it over?
Thank you very much. My name is Yoshikazu Uehara from Mitsui Chemical Singapore R&D Center. Today, I talk about the recent topics on plastic waste and Mitsui Chemicals activities. So, can you see my screen?
No. We still cannot. I think there should be an option on your bottom tab to share your screen. I think then. Oh yeah. Now it's visible.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. You're good.
Okay. Okay. First of all, this figure shows the material flow from oil to plastics. For example, crude oil produced in the Middle East is shipped to Singapore. Crude oil is separated into each component, LP gas, gasoline, and something, in oil refinery. Naphtha is a raw material for the chemical industry. Next, naphtha cracker. Naphtha is pyrolyzed into various basic chemicals such as ethylene, propylene, butadiene, something. So various plastics such as polyethylene, polypropylene, something are produced from these basic chemicals as raw materials. So what are these plastics used for? This chart shows the global production ratio by application. You can see the largest use of plastics is packaging. Packaging is easily discarded due to its short product life, and the percentage of marine waste is high. So here we would like to review the basic concept of the circular economy. The circular economy replaces the linear economy based on mass production, mass consumption, mass disposal. The circular economy is an economy in which the value of resources is maintained as long as possible and waste is minimized. For example, after virgin plastic is manufactured, it goes through a long route to the end of consumer. After the end consumer used plastics, it can be recycled or reused. Current 3 R's are reinterpreted sustainable economy activities based on the spread of new business models such as sharing, subscription business models, something. Here's a target for the plastic waste issue in developed countries. In 2030, for example, Japan government is target one-way plastics 25% reduction, plastic container packaging 60% recycling. plastic recycling doubled. Introduction of 2 million tons of biomass plastic. A G7 countries case in 2030, 100% reuse, recycle, heat recovery, and recycling usage ratio 50% or more. Reuse and recycle 55% of plastic container and packaging. And we want to realize a perfect, effective use of used plastics world. And here, this shows the principles of waste management. The higher the hierarchy of this inverted pyramid, the better the waste management method. Prevention, preparing for reuse, recycling, heat recovery, and disposal. So among these methods, the chemical industry is focusing on mechanical recycling and chemical recycling technology. Mechanical recycling is technology that reuse plastic as raw materials after sorting, crushing, and washing. Chemical recycling is a technology that decomposes waste plastics by a chemical reaction and reuse it as a chemical raw material. So now I'd like to introduce the technology trend in chemical industry. Regarding mechanical recycling, so global chemical company has been entered the mechanical recycling business. However, various challenges still limit the application use. Regarding chemical recycling, so global chemical company are developing actively so the effects of regarding chemical recycling, global chemical companies are developing actively, and effect of reduction CO2 emission are expected. Therefore, chemical recycling is expected as a promising recycling method, we think. So by the way, bioplastics is gradually becoming an alternative to conventional plastic. However, the following concerns have also been pointed out. Regarding biomass plastic, it is difficult to procure the huge amount of raw materials. And we must consider edible or non-edible issue. So regarding biodegradable plastics, there are some issues for marine degradability or hindering other recycling and moral hazard. Next, I will introduce Mitsui Chemical's effort to tackle plastic issue. Mitsui Chemical is one of the largest petrochemical company in Japan. Our company mission is contribute broadly to society by providing high quality products and services to customers through innovation and creation of materials while keeping in harmony with the global environment. So it is a significance of Mitsui Chemicals Group to contribute widely through business activities to solve various social issues. So Mitsui Chemical provides chemicals and some chemicals and plastic products used in various fields, mobility area, healthcare area, food and packaging area, and basic industry materials. So we believe that climate change and plastic waste issue are inseparable from each other. Climate change and plastic waste are two sides of the same coin. Therefore, a plastic strategy of Mitsui Chemicals Group consists of two strategies: a recycling strategy and a biomass strategy. A recycling strategy is recycling of plastic resources, and biomass strategy is expanding lineup of biomass plastic products. This figure shows our recycling strategy and biomass strategy. We pursue a circular economy model throughout a value chain. Today, I would like to introduce three activities: chemical recycle, monomaterial packaging, and biopropylene. First of all, chemical recycling. So this activity is developing technology development of chemical recycling chain for automotive waste plastics. So after being used on automotive material, the resin is recovered and crushed, and liquefaction through liquefaction process and recycled to chemical raw material. We aim to actualize car-to-car recycling, making use of 600,000 tons of automotive shredder residue in Japan. Next example is monomaterial packaging. Traditional multi-layer film packaging consists of various materials, and it is difficult to recycle. So we aim to improve recyclability by monomaterial packaging. This package based on same material, based on polyethylene material. Last example, bio-based polypropylene. So our new production method being attempt for commercialization seeds, various biomass, mainly non-edible plants, are fermented to produce isopropanol, IPA. that we call IPA method. Biomass raw materials to bio-IPA by fermentation by using our innovative catalyst enzyme. After that, we get polypropylene and then get biopolypropylene. So this method is the first world first IPA method. Currently, we are verified this technology. So that's our approach to plastic problems. Finally, I would like to send our message, Mitsui Chemicals message. But to side opportunities brought by new values and needs, risks, and other rapid social changes in the post-COVID-19 and the with COVID-19 world, we hope that your business solution and business model will be brushed up. Mitsubishi Chemical Group is also supporting you. And thank you for your attention. That's all from my presentation.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any question?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We do have one question. It's about monomaterial. So someone is asking, are monomaterial compostable?
No, compostable. Our monomaterial is based on polypropylene, polyethylene. So it is not compostable, but recyclability is easy.
Well, in addition to Mr. Wehau's comment, usually the packaged potato chips or whatever you see is like the multi-layers consisting of the different plastic material. That's why it's very hard to recycle currently. So then once like everything is coming from the same material like a PE, then it's going to be easier to recycle. So then you can establish like the system towards like a monomaterial packaging. That's like the current like industry that focuses on, one of the focuses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Weha-san.
Hi, thank you very much.
Okay, back to the UNEP side. Yeah, thank you very much. That's all from our side, Mitsubishi Chemicals.
Thank you, Yano-san and Ohara-san. Thank you for conducting the session. And I think this is all for the session. Thank you guys for attending, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.